So this evening, we have a wonderful presentation by a global speaker and presenter. He's about the power of the subconscious mind. So please silence your cell phones and welcome John Mairorino. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello again. 4 years ago, same place, same people. You're all still here. That in itself is a godly thing. Just to be sure you're all here after 4 years living in the villages. Super. So tonight's on the power of the subconscious mind, and we're going to get into a lot of very, sometimes unusual areas that I've learned for the past 10 years. I traveled around the world, 17 countries, lived in a lot of countries to understand what they were doing when my daughters had unfortunate diseases, dying of cancer, and I wanted to find out what are they doing different in different countries. So not only did I get a background in that, but I also learned about different ways in which people saw the body and the mind and how everything came together. We brought it to this country. We're very, well now endowed in the ideas about what we can do with the body and the mind that we never knew from years ago, thank God. And we're getting better as society, as better people, as we get to know exactly how you and I function. The other thing that happened to me is I turned into my 80s a couple of years ago, right? That's a goodie. So as we do, we also begin to say, things are fading a little bit, right? And I said, that's not going to happen. I said, if I'm going to stand up here and tell people how to keep their mind and keep their body in shape, I've got to be body and mind in shape myself. So I learned a lot of things that help me, help my neighbors, and hopefully it's going to help you tonight. Power of the subconscious mind. What does that mean? Well, it's happy hour. That's about the subconscious mind right there. That's all you got to know, right? What happens when you have a drink? You go into your other mind, don't you, right? That's not quite what the subconscious is all about. That's the unconscious, and that's different than the subconscious. The Power of the Subconscious Mind originally was written by Joseph Murphy some years ago. It's been written 4 or 5 different times, but there are about 10 authors out in the world market publishing things like this. Some excellent, excellent books. Also got a lot of background by Dr. Clint Van Nagel, sitting right here from the villages, who's written 5 books, got 22 or 23 awards, national awards. Lucky to have him here. We cooperate together. He teaches me little things that I never even knew about the area of psychology, that he really goes deeply into it, as he's been a professor in a number of places. Laura's a friend of mine from Harvard University, and Laura's written a lot of books on the same thing, on the power of the subconscious, and how you turn that into your gain and not your loss as you get older and older in life. And if I did, I said, I got to really get into this, because every day I'm a little bit older, and every day I'm learning a little bit more, and I feel a little bit younger. Hopefully that'll turn you on too. Okay, let's take a look at it. The old way of thinking. You were here about 5 years ago. I talked about this little people coming together. In fact, I just left Manhattan the other day. I was working there all last week in the seminar I did there. And they used to have a table like this in all the best deli restaurants I ever went to in New York, because I kind of grew up mostly there. And you know what they used to play over there, right? You go around the table and you say, what do you got today? I got a bad arm. What about you? My back hurts like crazy. How about you? I got a new heart. I died 3 times. I came back. You win today, right? That's called Jewish anatomy poker, right? So it's right around the table. And you hear that everywhere. Going back to New York after 4 years, right? Same game, different people. This is an Italian restaurant now. Past the provolone now, right? So this is an interesting game, but we play a different one in the villages, thank God. Talk about what we do in the villages. This is a new Boulder in the villages. If you haven't been there, haven't entered into it, it's fabulous. It's unbelievable. They're really teaching us how to think differently as we get older, and really begin to embrace life, not worry about losing it. Okay, some of the key people from that area happens to be in here. One of them is Tweet, who's sitting right here, Tweet Coleman, thank God, right? She's done a lot of good books on this, but Getting Bolder is about using your freedoms now to get better and better at everything you get, finding the time to do things, but at the same time we're coming alongside of those people and saying, this is how you grow your mind, your brain, this is how you get better. Don't worry about losing it, you can be gaining it. So that's an excellent club to be a part of right now. I can only imagine healing very serious diseases by your faith alone or your mind, losing weight by believing you can, living longer and healthier just by training your brain to do it, and hitting that golf shot farther than you ever did in your life and not knowing you can do it by thinking differently. Does that rate up okay, guys? Yeah. We can do it, right? And what do you learn? You got to think differently. Because what happens is when I see the water over there and I'm thinking of it, even though I said I'm going to hit it there, why does it always go in the water? As you think, so you become. Part of what I'm going to show you is how that happens. Because as the mind works, the body will follow exactly what the mind says or does. Okay? It's also called the placebo effect. Learn a little bit about that tonight as well. Okay? Now, the amazing effects of placebo, which means I will please, unusual name for the word placebo, isn't it? As I think, I become, and so as I say things that I'm going to do, it just happens to happen because the body is actually following through with the brain commands, sees or does. If I think some way I'm getting worse, you will get worse. That's part of what we call the placebo effect. And it happens to all of us, and it happens all over the world. You're going to unusually find out what does that really mean, right? The growth of placebo and hypnotism in medical practices is well known. In the 1850s, surgeons were operating, and they cased this over 4,000 times for a wide range of diseases. No anesthesia. Oh, does that pain you? Think about that. They didn't have anesthesia back then. They didn't get drunk. Okay? But they had very little or no pain. Oh, all the way back here, well, in the 40s, World War II, and hundreds of soldiers wounded in battle were given fake morphine. Whew! Didn't feel that. Thank you, Doc. And all of a sudden they got well. This is called the placebo. As I think, I become, even for the pain that might go through my body, right? They're given fake morphine. In the 60s, Vietnam, same effect. It had morphine, and all of a sudden they told them we do, and all of a sudden it's happening. Of all the pills you take, and I don't think you take many in this room, 2, 3, 4 each, right? Okay? But every third one is a placebo, right? Sometimes every second one's a placebo. Just uncovered one where every 80% of them are placebo. What does that mean? I think I'm taking a pill that's helping me, and it's helping me. But 2 out of 3, sometimes 1 out of 3, are fake. The sugar pills. That's true all over the medical community. Look at anything you'll see, you find 1 out of 3 of your pills are placebo, which means I'm taking it, I'm feeling better, it's helping me. It's wrecked. It's not even real. So what does that mean? Something else is happening, right? I program my mind to believe something is going good when I take this pill. I got rid of the pain, and yet the pain still should be there. Why is it still there? Okay, no, it should be, but I don't feel it anymore, right? Same ache, same pain, same cancer, whatever it may be. And all of a sudden we get the same effect. Now, that's happened for what I'm showing you is years and years and years. Placebo is real. And it's the first clue that what I put in my mind is what happens to my body. Now, that's the bottom line here. All the things that we're going to see, and shortly it's going to be true, happen anywhere. It's going to say, what I set my mind to do, I tend to do it, whether it's a shot in golf or taking something that I believe is helping me. And all of a sudden, it starts to happen. Okay? And so one thing I think we all really need to master, because if we can master this, we can get through almost anything in life, okay? Because we get better faster, better at anything we tend to do. By just explaining to ourselves, I know I can do it, I believe I can do it, and then it begins to happen in every walk of life. This is true, it's just in the press, 75% to 90% of visits to doctors result in stress-related disorders beginning with your thoughts. So, what causes stress? I got a little bit in my life, traveling around the world, going to New York City last week, doing this presentation. Another thing I have to do in a couple of weeks in another city, and I'm 82. So you would say, he's got a lot of stress in his life, right? Maybe, but I learned this. I learned it years ago. I practiced it, now I teach it. It said, wait a minute, there's another power working within you. You don't have to get stressful. Now we all know what stress does to the body. It tightens up all of those 74,000 miles of blood vessels in every human being. Think about that for a minute. I didn't say 74,000 miles, 74,000 blood vessels. But you have 74,000 miles of blood vessels in every human being. A lot of those are very tiny. You can't see them with the head of a pin. They're going through your entire body. But when the body tightens up, the blood doesn't flow. The blood doesn't flow. Everything from your medication to your substance, whatever you might be eating, doesn't get to where it has to go to get into the cell structure of the body, does it? Because it's getting too tight. Stress, therefore, begins to work on the entire body, and what happens, thank you, get away from that, right? What happens is all of a sudden we have another problem with our body. It's not just stress, but stress is causing another breakdown in the body by something not getting to where it has to go through blood flow and other problems that we tend to have. So stress is a major cause of a lot of diseases, but also a lot of problems we have in our life. If we can strengthen that area and understand that area, okay, we're going to go a long way to try to get well faster, sooner, maybe not even getting sick in the first place. So what is stress doing? It's a disorder beginning with your thoughts, right? So today we're going to go deeply into your thought pattern, try to understand what's going on. I'm not a negative thinker. I might see 2 or 3 people that aren't out there. Really? You're not. Probably a positive thinker. Do you ever have a negative thought because someone said, you don't look good today? As soon as they say that to you, your body hears it and your body goes into stress. Now you may shake it off and say, that's not true. But as soon as you hear something about who you are, what you look like, it begins to happen within the body. The body begins to break down and it goes into a stress reaction. And what we're trying to do is to say, how do I get rid of the stress reactions, or how do I get rid of what happens when I'm under stress in terms of the general reaction that we all get? Okay? And that's what we want to talk about a little bit today, because that's the time bomb right there. So, Harvard Medical Study, 2 groups. Group 1, stress is harmful and causes ill effects. 43 were most likely to die and become ill. It's a famous publication by Harvard Business. Okay, look at the other side of this stuff. Believe stress is motivating. Whoa, I love it. Makes me go, right? Yeah, right, it's good for you. They survived and thrived. They didn't get sick. They didn't die. They didn't become ill. They thrived. They got better. They got better with the same stress condition that they did, but they thought it was harmful, and they thought it was good for me, it motivates me. So what's going on here? Placebo. It's all over the place. That's placebo too. Don't get too close to it, right? Stay over here. So something's going on that occurs between your thought pattern and your body's position. And as it looks at everything from healthy, okay, to getting stronger and better, okay, that's one of the keys. Placebo. Brief-release oxytocin, okay, they believed it, and because of their belief, when we went through the bodies, what happened to these bodies of these people, oxytocin hormone was released. Simply by the way they thought differently. What does that tell you? Placebo's not a pill. Placebo is it's a life pattern. It's one that we get caught up in, either negative or positive, but also about every condition in our life. Can I hit the golf ball straight? That's a placebo. Because then the body's going to say, I think I can, but I'm worried about the water. And why does it always go in the water? We'd be great golfers if we understood. A couple of golfers have proven this. I'll show you that too. Let's take a look at this gentleman. This gentleman has Parkinson's dyslexia treatment. It's awful. Can't even hold on to himself. He's not acting. Now this happened here. We're testing him with different colored glasses. Now we're going to give him a pair of glasses, they're green color. And we're going to tell him, watch what happens. That's the only thing that changed. Put on a pair of colored glasses. Look at them. Isn't that amazing? It's right here. Okay? That's the only thing different. So how fast does it work? It's instantaneous. The belief system takes off, your body changes immediately, And all of a sudden, I can do things I didn't think I could do. I'm overcoming problems I didn't think I did. I can remember things I never thought I could. All because of a belief system that totally changed based on either something I saw or heard. And boom, the body changed in a second. It's amazing. Shows all the scientific evidence behind how that happens within the body as we get into it. This is patients that were treated. It's a mirror treatment. They walked into the office and they were being treated, but they put a mirror on the wall and they said, now stand up. Okay? So he said, move your injured leg. Well, they didn't realize the injured leg was the opposite leg. Okay? Because they're in the mirror. So when they're looking at it and they think that's my left arm foot. Okay, I'm going to move this. Well, wait a minute. What they just moved is the injured leg. And they could move it, bend it, do anything they wanted to it because they thought they were moving in the mirror the leg that hurt them, and that was crippled. And yet when we switched it in the mirror, they thought they could move that leg, but not the other one, and they began to use the crooked leg, the one that was hurting, thinking it was their good leg. Not realizing that in the mirror, it's backwards. Isn't that something? You kind of begin to see the power of the placebo, power of thought, and how it controls your entire body, injuries, no matter what it might be. It's amazing stuff. But that's you and I. We're made like that. Okay? Wide use in the treatment of burns now, victims in the military. Put on this virtual reality as a pain treatment. They're using that everywhere. It's more used now in a lot of different areas, not just for pain, but we moved it into higher areas of even learning and education, right? So if they put the scope on and they began to look at it, okay, the treatment of the burn suddenly said, okay, I can see myself being treated, I'm okay, I'm getting better, and all of a sudden the treatment of the burn said, how do you feel now? Are you still feeling the burn? No, I don't feel the burn anymore. What just happened? I don't know, but I saw myself holy. It's not bothering me anymore. So they saw a quick demonstration of what they looked like without the burn, and they started getting over the burns used in the military to get through some rapid change in their thinking about what they had for pain. And it's been used now in schools and education and other places all over the world. Some of these started in other places of the world. Remember, we've got pharma over here, big pharma. You've got to take a pill. Over there they go, no, we got different ways of treating you in addition to pills. And it works. Maids. Took 40 maids, 20 were told their weight loss with every choice they did. 40 hotel maids did exactly what they were told to do, and they did it for months. But 20 were told they were losing weight because they showed with everything here, your stretch, you're this, you're carrying that pail of water, you're actually losing this much weight. Well, what happened? 3 months later, these 20 each lost an average of about 3 to 5 pounds, 3.5 to 5 pounds. All they were told, that's all they were told. So 20 different maids, all losing weight, 20 don't. And the only thing told, hey, what you're doing is helping you. You're losing weight. Isn't that amazing? And every time you lift that water, it's helping you. And they say, that's great. So placebo isn't just a pill, is it? It's a way of thinking. It's a way of believing. It's really programming your conscious, not just your subconscious, to behave in a certain pattern in a certain way. And all of a sudden your body takes off, and it does. Now I'm not talking about behaving like a baseball swing or a golf. I'm talking about it can get well versus getting ill, because you do talk to your body with your mind. Okay? And that's the key. It's not verbal. It's something that happens within here. It teaches the body how to respond. Keep that in mind. Not something you have to take action with. It automatically takes place when you believe something here. And I'm going to show you what here means in just a moment. Credibility and trust in the person telling you. Did you ever notice the doctors in hospitals, they moved in some cases to all black, some cases to all blue? Why are you supposed to do that? So you can notice the difference between a doctor and a nurse and a patient? No. Certain colors, mostly now blue, and then they've gone to some cases black, I don't know why, but blue, and they wear the same color blue as this gentleman is standing right here. Stand up for a minute. See that blue? You're a doctor, aren't you? Yes. He is. Okay, so what happens is when you see that, you feel more comfortable, okay, feeling like this person really knows what they're doing. They're in the medical community. You don't have to say you are, you don't have to have a title. They're dressing that way so you feel good because you're in the hands of people that are knowing what they're doing, and they're in the medical community. Only by the color. And so therefore, the placebo is beginning to work, which is why they all dress the same way. And I think it's very thoughtful, because it makes them feel comfortable being in the space of professionals in this business. Make sense? Are we all with me? You all have that same experience in your life so far? You got a ways to go yet. Color of the pills, also, and the smile of the caretaker have an amazing placebo effect, like 24%. That's amazing. But think of this, the pills are being colored by a certain color too, that you take, okay? Because they studied that and learned that if it's a certain color, it's a certain area of the concern of your body, that color really makes a difference. So when they take it, they feel better and it works better. Only by the color of the pill. Even though every third one is fake. Oh, I feel like we've been cheated for years. But it's amazing that some lights have gone on, and we're now aware of all this too, because this is not new knowledge. Placebo's been around. The understanding of what happens in the subconscious mind has been around a long time. We're now beginning to teach it everywhere. Yeah, black's okay for villages ushers. Right, let's get on to the next one. Power of the mind in sports. You ever hear of visualization? All you guys and girls play golf or anything else? Visualization. What is it? What I see happening in my mind, right? I'm looking at the course. I'm going to hit it in a certain place. Why do they teach that? A couple of guys like Jack Nicklaus, Michael Jordan, learned that. 4 hours a day in practice, 3.5 on watching himself, thinking to himself. I see myself doing this. I see that shot going straight. He's done that for years and years. The first one of major golf players to study the power of the visualization. And he's in his 60s, going in 70s, I guess. But he said, I don't have to get out there and practice as much. I practice with my mind, seeing where the shot goes. I practice that swing in my head. So does he. And they learn the power is universal. It's not just being treated, it's getting better at anything you do. Because they see the result, and the result is what they focus on, not the result of where the ball's, where it's going to go from the pin, but it's going to go straight, it's going to land here. They see that clearly. Whereas I get up there and I go, there's the water. Oh my God, it's a little windy today. Oh, that's the last thing I want to say, because the ball's going to go what I just said. You say, no, it doesn't. I don't think that way. I just say it. Yes, it happens that way because you just told yourself, watch out for that. The mind, the brain, the body heard that. And it delivered exactly what you were thinking, even though you might try to say something different. Remember that. You have to train yourself to use the visualization technique. It's powerful. Okay? So you think about what you want to accomplish, how it's going to be done, and then you do it. But you have to concentrate on the outcome really working and having the confidence, because there's a number of different things working inside the body and the brain that make it work, not just your thought pattern. Help. Big time. We don't think about that, do we? Power of the mind, where thoughts originate. Okay, so let's get into the mind, the body, and the soul, spirit. Okay, that's what everyone teaches all over the world. Believe me, even I've been in Saudi Arabia 100 times, Dubai 180 times. We all believe the same thing. There's a mind, a body, and a spirit, or they call it the soul. Okay? This is the way they tend to work together. This is in the Bible as well. Okay? Genetics, memory, and perceptions go into the mind. Emotions are dealing with the mind. Remember that emotions come up behind the mind, and they listen to what you said or thought, and those emotions begin to take action too. There's an emotional equation in here that's used. This is why I teach emotional intelligence, right? But I'm also going to show you a video that the heart also has memory. Heart has its own emotions, and heart has its own brain. Believe it or not, I'm going to show you that, right? So the thought comes from the mind, but also many times from the heart. I really believe it. The decisions are made according to that. The decisions in your mind were made. You don't have to explain them. The brain takes off and the behavior occurs. So that's a big replication of the phenomena that's going on. As I believe, I become, I do what I really see. Okay, it's all happening there. But I'd like to introduce a couple of new components here and make it very, very understandable and real. Okay? This is consciousness, this is subconscious. This is what I see, what I believe, my emotions, okay? However, the decisions I'm making through the body are more subconscious, not necessarily conscious. That's what I'm explaining tonight, is the difference between the two and where they marry, they come together to make something happen in your life, okay? Where thoughts originate. The mind is the soul, conscious and subconscious, duality of the mind it's called in all religions. The conscious mind creates thoughts and therefore decisions. Thoughts are real physical things that drive the subconscious. Oops, something else happening over here, which affects the brain to take action. So what's going on here? I'm affecting the brain a couple of different ways, aren't I? Okay? This is, the mind is the soul, the conscious and subconscious. That's called the duality of the mind, where they divide. This creates the thought, because it becomes conscious, right? I have a thought, I can see it, I can tell you about it, right? Okay? Down here, the thought is real, but what I don't realize that subconsciously something is happening with the thought. The physiology of it is going to drive your subconscious to behave in such a way that it's going to take action. So now we got two other things working. It gets a little complicated, doesn't it? Conscious and the subconscious. Right, doctor? He's shaking his head, yes. I programmed that one. Just keep saying yes. All right, so this is what's going on, no matter what happens. Body, soul, and spirit all working together to make a decision and inclined to take action. Bang, then it works. The spirit influences the mind, known as what we now call the superconscious, because it has such power. So there's something else happens. The body, soul, spirit, right? Each one has a role in every decision you make in life. All right? So now we know what happens. The mind is the soul. The spirit influences the mind, called the superconscious. Really is working in the background to make things work, make them happen. Okay? Conscious mind is creating a thought, but it has to do with what's happening here and what's happening here that go into the thought. Create the thought pattern. A little bit complicated, but three things are working at the same time, right? My thought, okay, through my mind, but behind that is my subconscious, what I really believe. So therefore, when I take that shot and go off, it seems like that's the one everybody remembers in college. I don't know why. When I go to hit it, why does it go in the water, John? Because my consciously, John, just said it's going to go there. Your subconscious said, BS, it's going there. Why? Because that's what I felt would happen. That's what happened the last time. Subconsciously is overriding the conscious thought and taking control of my swing. Isn't that amazing? Because it's much more powerful. I can't program myself, can't think differently. Okay, so what I tend to say and what I tend to do could be two different things. Because my belief system is in the subconscious. Hear what I said? The belief system is in the subconscious. It's in the conscious too, but it's in the subconscious mainly. Therefore, it's going to drive the behavior that's happening. So when you put it all together, we say, well, we're rather confusing individuals, aren't we, as humans? Yeah. Because we got so many dynamics working at the same time within the body, in the brain, and in the heart. And we're a little bit confused about what really happens and when it happens. So I have a thought over here, but I also have, that's the conscious, but there's a subconscious working too that believes something different because of my past history perhaps. That goes to work and it takes over what the conscious mind said, and all of a sudden the ball's going in the water again. Because I don't really believe it, I just said it. Now we understand that part? One overrides the other. And it's a condition which happens in our life all the time. So what do we really believe? Okay? What do we really believe is going to happen when we try to access this body, soul, spirit? Because three things are working within me, okay, at the same time. Here's the spiritual. It's called the counselor, influencer, the comforter. It's based on moral and ethical values found in the Bible, the core belief system that drives the powers of your behavior. As you believe, so you become. Where does the core belief system reside? Not in the brain. Whoop, flashing, boom, boom, boom. 14 years ago, something happened to make us think differently, and we now know the difference. It doesn't happen in the brain, it happens in the heart. What does that mean, John? Well, now we know that the brain has its own heart. That the configuration in the brain, which is a bunch of neurons, trillions of them, little stems that flow and they connect by signals, not by connecting, but by signals, all through your brain, is exactly the same configuration that we found in the heart. I'm going to show you that's true and how that works. So now you got two brains. Whoa! What does that mean? You got a brain here and a brain here. Well, what do? Sometimes they're at odds because they both have to come together for certain things to happen. All right? So they often do fight because they don't necessarily agree with each other.
The human body is electrical and magnetic in nature. And what we know is that every organ in our body creates an electrical field and a magnetic field. This is the stuff that connects our world. The best science of our time is now telling us that when we create emotions in our hearts, that those emotions actually regulate the electrical and the magnetic field throughout the rest of the body. The brain regulates the signals, but the brain can only do so when it receives the signal itself from the heart. Every day, we create a signal from our heart, and the quality of that signal from our heart to our brain regulates the way the rest of our body functions. So when we feel the feelings of well-being and peace, for example, that is one kind of signal, and it tells our brain that we live in a safe world, and our brain doesn't have to worry about fight or flight or defense. So our brain is able in that time to release the chemistry that supports life and a strong immune system and growth. When we feel a sense of fear and that we're threatened, the brain shuts down that part of our experience for a high immune system and high immune response, and it goes into what is called fight or flight with the chemistry, high levels of cortisol and adrenaline for the fight or flight. It's all about the way we feel in our hearts. Now, this is really interesting to me because when we study those ancient traditions, what we begin to understand is the reason this connection is not acknowledged in the modern world is because the very texts that tell us about the power of the human heart are the texts that were either edited or deleted from our most cherished traditions. And now that they're being rediscovered, we now know how this relationship works, and science is bearing it out. One of the first ways that scientists began to understand that the heart has a memory, and this is very interesting to me, was there was a successful heart transplant from a young child into the body of a woman who was in her 80s. The operation was successful. The woman woke up. The doctor said, "How do you feel?" She says, "I feel good, and I'm hungry." He says, "Okay, we'll get you some food." She goes, "Well, I want not the hospital food." And she began to give very specific kinds of foods that she was craving as she was awakening from the anesthesia. She'd never eaten these foods before in her life. And a little investigation showed that the 13-year-old boy whose heart she had received, what she was craving were the foods that were his favorite foods. They said, okay, maybe it's a coincidence, anecdotally. This led to a series of studies, and they found that this happens actually very frequently, that when an organ is specifically a heart, transplanted into the body of a recipient, the recipient will begin to take on characteristics, such as food cravings, of the person that the heart originally, the heart originally resided in. This went so far, and this is why authorities now are so certain that this memory actually happens. There was a young woman who was murdered, and her heart was not injured, in the murder, and it was transplanted into the body of another woman who immediately began having nightmares. The same nightmare, night after night, again and again, very detailed, very specific, very precise about the murder that had actually taken her life. The authorities began to take this seriously into consideration, and they researched the details, and the details were so specific they led to the arrest and the conviction of the person who committed the murder. And when we see that kind of information, it begins to take it out of the realm of anecdote and into the realm of telling us there's a phenomenon that's happening here that we haven't acknowledged in the past. There is a neural network, a brain within the heart. The brain has memory. It goes much more than that. The brain bypasses the logic of the mind. And in this way, it serves us because it can help us make decisions based on what we feel as truth rather than what we judge or discern even. What our bias, our fear may prevent us from seeing when we think about the choices. Our heart doesn't see any of that because it makes its decisions based upon what it's feeling here, not what we're thinking from our past experience. So the term that now is being coined is called heart intelligence, and it's through this heart intelligence that we're beginning to open a new door of possibility about how this can serve us in our lives in the new world that's emerging, where we find ourselves interconnected with one another and with all life in ways that we're only beginning to understand.
Okay. That's something, isn't it? That was 22 years ago, and every year they keep getting better and better, because when that hospital finally released and they began to publish what was going on, doctors from around the world said, that happened to me too, that happened to me. We couldn't report it because it didn't make sense. And they got thousands and thousands of reports saying every time there was a heart transplant, something phenomenal happened to the patient. Not every single time did they find a heart there, but they found the memory that only the brain should carry. And that brain, therefore, when they began to look at it, now we can see inside the heart, we can look at every neuron. Remember, there are trillions, we can now look at how they function. It's the same one in the brain. So the heart has a neurological function just like the brain does, and now we learn how it works. How it works is that information that comes into you and I doesn't come from our eyes or our ears, it actually comes from the back of our head, through the amygdala, right here, a little thing in the back of our head that I'm going to show you. Okay? In other words, your backbone is like a tuning fork. It looks at the entire world. Okay? It picks up information from the environment through the back, sends it in the back of the head, which relates it to the heart and the brain simultaneously. Now, I have a feeling, and I've got to look at it. Now we're beginning to see something. Now I transpose it, and I can get it into the eyes and the ears and everything that works. You get that, but the eye doctor will tell you that you got a problem with your ears, but it's not in your ears. It's back here in the back of the head. The amygdala is amazing because it can capture everything that's ever happened to you in your life, and it's still there. It could be 10 trillion different thoughts that you ever had. They're in that little amygdala in the back of your head. And everything goes through to make a decision in your life, which is an amazing criteria. Let's see how that works. I call it the Starbucks relationship, wouldn't you? The two of them get together, we got it made. But they don't always get together because the heart sees something that the brain doesn't. Okay? So you say, I don't eat that meal tonight. That looks really good. I think, well, I have that. And the heart said, no, you don't want to eat that. You don't want to do that. It's not good for you. And you're having a fight inside your head saying, should I eat it or not? Is it good for me or not? Well, the heart won today, but the brain's going to win tomorrow, right? Because the brain wants the body to feel okay. It just wants the body, it says it's good for the body. But the brain has all this complexity of memory, of a lot of information comes from your religion and everything else. Your belief system is there. And it goes through that, it filters through that. And all of a sudden I have the same thought, and my heart and my head aren't agreeing. So who wins? Sometimes the heart, sometimes the brain, right? But it goes through every thought you have in the body. It's amazing how fast this happens. Okay? And so, as he thinketh in his heart, so he is. That's in the Bible. Oh, it's also in Buddha. It's also in the Quran. Talked about this when I was with the people from Saudi Arabia last week. Man becomes that which he thinks. The mind is everything. So you think you become. As he thinks, so is in his so is he become. Okay? I'll just say, this is very, very, very understandable because it's mentioned 38 times in the Bible. The brain is never mentioned in the Bible. The mind is, not the brain. The heart, 38 times. As he thinks with his heart, believe with all your heart. Remember with your heart. Now we get it. We say, whoa, there's something else happening here too. That's in the Holy Book. It's in all the Holy Books. Somebody's pointing to the heart as a memory, as a thought process. Never thought of that. We thought we had a brain. Well, you got a brain, you also got a heart. But the heart superimposes information on what the brain does. That's how it all happens with you within a second. Okay? Sizer went to the little DNA also. There's also little telomeres in the brain. Telomeres are an extension of all the DNA that you inherit from your parents, grandparents, etc. It comes into your life. It's called your DNA evidence. Okay? When you have a negative attitude in your body, that telomere shrinks. When I have a positive attitude in my life, that telomere grows. Guess what the base is going to be? Your length of your life. You read that in any medical journal. Now they can look at the telomere tail, the end of the DNA strain, and you can't see it, you and I, but they can measure it now. And it says if it's long, you got a long life ahead of you. If it's short, forget it. Okay? Every single time they've done it, it worked exactly as they predicted it would, based on the tail of the DNA, which you either inherited, but what we learned recently is that tail can grow by your positive attitude on life. And then we watch the tail begin to grow. And it grows a little longer and a little longer on the DNA that you might have inherited. And all of a sudden, I've got a better life cycle, okay, like because of what I do in my life, what I eat, how I think differently. And all of a sudden, something's going on in your cells. That little telomere is growing. And that's a telltale of age, how long you're going to live. Now they can predict it. Think about that, guys. You can actually get that measured. I don't know if they measure here in the villages. I don't think they know what it is yet. But they will. See if I can make this work. Whoop. Okay, let's skip this. So, teach me more about the brain, John. Okay, well, one of the things to understand about the brain grows and changes with every experience in your life. So, we focused on the heart. You can see what that does. Let's focus a little bit on the brain, because those are the two parts of the body that are really causing your activity, your age, everything about it, right? So the brain grows and changes with every experience in your life, at any age. Don't let them tell you your brain is shrinking. Your brain is growing. Every time you have a new experience, you read a new book, something new you've learned, the brain develops more neurons. So neurons could die, new neurons could get growth and have growth. We learned with Alzheimer's and we learned with dementia. Okay, I know people personally in my own family with dementia that had it, and I watched them disappear. Okay, why? Because the neurons in their brain were shrinking. They weren't growing anymore, they're shrinking. So what does everyone tell you to do? All of us, right? Read a book, do a cartoon, do something with your hands, craft something. But every day you get into something that makes your brain have to think and build something and create something. Maybe a new dance step. You're creating new neurons to overcome the neurons that you've lost with age. So don't use it, lose it. But regain it by taking activity in your life that's going to keep the brain moving and growing. You'll feel alive, you'll feel better, you won't get that kind of dementia acceptance because something is happening in the brain to keep it growing and building. As the neurons grow, you get better at everything. Okay? The brain grows and changes with every experience at any age. You have the inherent ability to change your brain just by how you think. Read something, think about it, talk about it, bang. The brain is beginning to develop and grow. New neurons are formed. Forget about the old ones dying. That's not good for us. The new ones are growing, and they're building, and they're getting better. There's hope for us people in the villages. Right. We should all be yelling, yeah! Neuroplasticity. If you keep doing the same things, you'll always get the same thing you've always got, right? Learn to change the thinking to change the results, period. That's neuroplasticity, which means the brain is plastic. It's growing, it's developing. That's the good news. This doctor right here will tell you that he's writing a book on it again, aren't you? Right now you're writing it, aren't you? Does the brain keep growing? Keep developing? It all depends what you read, right? No more comic books. Maybe. All right, so here's the neuron. Your mind, your ability to create a neurological connection, your brain form new skills and habits, but doesn't necessarily choose the right one. So there we go back again to where the heart can come in and tell you which ones to choose too. Okay, because there's another thing working within your body. Okay, you can have good thoughts or bad thoughts, good habits or bad habits. Doesn't mean that everything you do is going to be healthy, is it? So when I have a good healthy habit and a good healthy thought, I'm reading something positive, they will develop. I can also decrease the neurological foundation. Why? By being negative about everything I read or see. The one thing I'll caution you with, I do the wrong thing myself. Turn off that 11 o'clock news. Because what I'm going to show you is devastating. Because for 8 hours, the brain and the heart are going to work on the last thoughts you had, because they don't have to worry about the body functioning. They just keep going on and on and on through your body, and they begin to work within you about what's the last thing you planted in your mind before you went to sleep. Bang, you programmed it. And for 8 hours, the program is working. Is it doing positive or negative things in my body while I sleep? Sleep is extremely important. It reduces stress in a lot of ways, but it also plants what you want to put into your head overnight. So your body gets better, because your brain gets better, and your heart gets better. Does that make sense? I know you all do that, right? So the 11 o'clock news is off or what? It's 10 o'clock, right? The conscious mind, 10%. This is versus the subconscious, right? 10% is the conscious mind. 90% is down here. Your subconscious mind is greater than your conscious mind. This is what stores all that information. This is where everything builds from your values, your beliefs, everything you read, your emotions, all of your emotions, your habits, also long-term memory. And you're going to see how fast the subconscious mind works to make a thought. 30,000 times faster than the conscious mind does. Keep that in mind. The power of the subconscious is whatever I put down here is going to rise to the surface instantly, because I have a thought up here. But if I programmed it down here, think about what you programmed, because that's what's going to come out here. So go back to just talking about golf in a minute. Now, that ball's going straight. Down here, the subconscious knows. I really don't believe that. I never hit a ball like that. 30,000 times faster, I'm told that the ball's going in the water. Because it always has and always will, right? Think about that. Everything that you think about goes through the subconscious before it gets to the conscious. And the framework is what you're really making your decision up here on. So what I put down here, that's what I'm saying. Watch what happens when you sleep. Watch what your memory is. Watch what's happening before you go to bed. Everything. You're programming your subconscious to behave accordingly and think accordingly. This is upward, this is downward, and controlling everything in your body. So, duality of the mind. Conscious mind, subjective, gains knowledge through the 5 physical senses. Subconscious mind, subjective. Everything comes into the subconscious, right? This I can decide what I want. Down here, I don't. Everything, every fact comes there. Inward tuition, seat of emotions. Ooh, now we learned something else. Seat of emotions, because it controls that emotional intelligence, which I teach. And the emotions could drive anything you tend to do in life over logic and a framework for what you should do, but the emotion could drive you in a different direction, right? What I actually do believe. But the thing is, it's all happening down here, under the surface. This is above the surface. Let me give you another illustration of that. Here's the duality of the mind again. Responds to certain stimuli, processes one thought at a time, does not form habits. Whoa, that's interesting. This is called the sixth sense, processes thought substantially, forms habits if repeated, and this is happening 10,000 times faster than this is. Whew. That's amazing stuff, isn't it? So the subconscious is more powerful than the conscious. I can see, hear, touch, taste, do whatever I want. That's conscious. But under me, there's a lot of underlying things that are going on in my mind. Also now in the heart, because the heart has this other equation, okay, that it also triggers your thoughts down here. That's feelings, emotions, love, everything else, okay? So this is all going into the subconscious, which is why the subconscious is really what happens versus what's trying to happen up here in the conscious. This is the program. This is what I'm trying to execute in Microsoft. When I touch that button, but this happens, that's because this is Microsoft under the carpet. This is what I see. This is what actually happens when I hit that button, the human button. Does it make sense? Whoop! Well, something different happening here, right? So, conscious, the ability of the subconscious mind to analyze data is 30 times faster than the conscious. Subconscious doesn't have to think. It takes an information, processes it through everything you've ever been through in your life, and comes out with a funneled thought. Bang. My conscious has to think about it. The subconscious remembers it from all my life, all my experiences, throws it out there, and tries to control what the conscious said I want to do. That's why it's hard to break habits. Consciously, I want to break a habit, but subconsciously, I have to get over my old habit to break into my new habit in everything I tend to do, including how I think, how I see things. Okay? Or my subjective reaction might be. Right? So the subconscious is the servant of the conscious. It obeys the thoughts and words made in the conscious, whether they be deliberately chosen or automatically expressed, which means that if I make a decision in the conscious, it goes down to the subconscious, becomes part of that programming. The subconscious has a whole weight down there. It says, I'm going to take all the programs, but they're fed by you. And what you taught me all my life is that ball's going in the water no matter what you do. They keep saying the same thing. It says, I'm going to go back in history here. I'm adding this to what you taught me, but it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to continue to contribute to your consciousness on what you've always done. That's your habit. Habit is formed differently, right? So, automatically expressed, obeys the thoughts and the minds. The subconscious is the servant of the conscious. Tell me what's good about that. Okay, John, here's what's good about it, because I can't take notes from the audience yet, right? I can change. Isn't that great? I can change. I change my thinking and how I think and how I express my thoughts. I slowly begin to change my habits. Because the conscious is training the subconscious how to respond and react. If I practice what I think I know, and I deliberately feel I can do it, the subconscious is beginning to build that core strength, ability, and idea. That's why we have to practice, not just say we're going to do it, but do it over and over and over again until it's second nature. Then the subconscious takes it over, and the conscious and subconscious are working together. Kind of awkward, but it's like a program. You already got a program there. I got to reprogram it every time I want to get it better, right? So I'm going to try different things to make it better. But to make it better, I may have to practice doing it, thinking about it constantly until it takes off and I've got a new program. We're going to talk to Microsoft about this, right? Disease and good health like circumstances are rooted in the thought. So here's your actions. Positive attitude, 100% success. 90% negative attitude, 100% failure. Again, action, what I want to do, attitude, beneath the surface. Okay? What do I really believe is my attitude, not what I like to believe, but what I really believe is my attitude. Okay? So I have to have the confidence. I have to train myself to think differently, to focus on that and say, I know I can do it, I know I can do it. This is what I want to do, this is what I want to feel. When I have a bad day, I need to overcome the bad day with something that's going to make me feel better, which is what I like about Boulder and the Villages now. All they talk about is how do you focus everything you're going on in your life and try to turn that into something good. right? Sweet, you're in that board of directors, and it works, right? It's not just programming myself, it's really believing it. Because if you believe it, you believe it with what? Not here, here. So you can't kid yourself, you have to believe. And if you believe and do it, you follow through on it, you got a brand new action coming out of your attitude rather than failure. This is the tough part to get over the negative, all right? There's the positive attitude, there's the negative attitude. We all have the challenge. Okay, so sowing and reaping is interesting. Whatever you plant, which means whatever I think, I put into my memory, my brain, my heart, what happens, that's the subconscious, it's going to grow. Make sense? What do I plant? What do you mean plant? Plant into my subconscious. How do I do that? Think about it, practice it, build that habit in my head. That's what's going to grow. Okay? Genetics produces a predisposition to worry or survive. But because of our tendency to obsess near the past and worry about the future, too much worry on time alone can have a mental and physical health consequence. Anybody relate to that? So what are we building here? What are we building here? Okay? So genetics can produce, not saying in every case, could be totally different with your parents or your genetic condition, where you got that information from as a young child, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old. That's when you were programmed. 90% of your brain was programmed at a very young age. And those were your belief systems that you began to go into your subconscious. And they weren't changed unless something changed that in later behavior in life, later teaching in life. But that's the framework for growth, 3 to 9 years old. People, teach your children. Watch what you teach my grandchildren. Because whatever you say about them, that's what they believe, and that's what they're building as the evidence for how they're to behave. They're building that subconscious, okay? And that's why it's so important to think about what it's going to take to retrain and override poor beliefs in your life, poor habits in your life for something better. It can happen, but it doesn't happen overnight. But it can happen, all right? So the tendency to obsess over the past and worry about the future, bang. That's where our health comes from. Anxiety occurs in the mind, may not be real, but acts as fear in the subconscious. I think it's going to be tough. Fear is the equation that comes out. So anything that causes fear, go back to the stress again, right? Blood pressure is going to change, things are going to happen, it's going to be negative, very difficult, and sickness. Stress. A lot of stress comes out of fear. There are two equations in emotional intelligence, fear and love. They're totally the opposite. Okay? If you're teaching love, has a totally different reaction on the subconscious. You're teaching fear, totally different reaction in the subconscious. But those are the two extremes. Subconscious cannot distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. Look at a child or anyone else, even yourself. Therefore, what you think will happen often does happen. Here we go, back to the first slide we ever showed. What I think will happen is what often does happen. I really do think. Bang. A subconscious been programmed. It overrides the conscious, therefore that ball's going in the water. She uses the same one over and over again, right? Okay? Because the subconscious will override the conscious because that's what you really believe will happen versus what I would like to happen. Okay? So, what's epigenetics? Well, that's what we receive. Genes' behavior get expressed from our parents. Neuroplasticity is the ability for the brains to change their blood cells. And organic, the nervous tissue itself that drives the brain is endowed with an extraordinary degree of plasticity, which means the great thing about this is we're still growing and developing, and I don't care if you're 110 years old. Your brain is still developing, your heart is still developing. That's amazing. It's not dying. It grows with change, new information, new ideas, etc. Continues to thrive. But the genes get expressed based on what happens. Neuroplasticity means you have the ability to change anything. Enter the world of quantum physics, the body's magnetic field, and he's talking about how the body behaves according to quantum technology now, which means that now we know that the body is not connected by a series of physical connections. The heart is not, the brain is not. They're signals. These signals go out, okay? And the signals cause something else to be expressed. I don't want to get too technical on this. That means that everything that's going on in your body, your mind, your heart, everything, they're not connected physically, they're connected by signals. Two cells, neurons talking to each other, they connect by signals. And eventually they do connect, but they connect by signals. Now, the only reason that this becomes rather important is because you can sense those signals in other people sometimes. You pick up a vibe, you say. I'm feeling a little bit different. Well, your whole body is nothing but magnetic signals. It's 100 years ago they developed the idea that, yeah, the body is just a bunch of magnets, of signals rather. The whole thing is energized by signals. Everything talks to everything else by signals. Heart talks to the head by signals. Brain talks to the body by signals, okay? So it's sending something out there that's collected by the receiver and behaving accordingly. It's not connected directly. That's what's really going on here. See, external environment, the belief, goes through the cells and tissues, and it becomes your behavior. That's how the cells change, that's how DNL happens. It's your belief system that's sending a signal. So when I say right now, sitting here, just move your big toe if you can, wiggle it. You didn't send any kind of blood flow. You sent a signal to your big toe to move, and the big toe moved. Let me give you something that's even easier to understand. Make a telephone call right now to your home address, wherever it is. Let's say it's the other side of the world. How fast do they pick up and talk to you? Within a second? The phone rings, they pick it up and they say hello. You ever see any wires? That's a signal. Your body sends signals, just like your telephone signals. The core of the earth is a huge signal. Okay? That's how everything functions. That's what makes you happy. That makes your blood flow. Okay? But there are others, and that's called the quantum science, other forces in the environment. Other kinds of signals in the environment. When they all come together, they form you. That's how you think, that's how you function, that's how you grow, that's how you breathe. A bunch of signals going on telling my body how to behave. So this kind of technology that we're talking about, why is it so difficult to understand? You don't see signals. Unless you think about that telephone call tonight, you don't think about a signal. But my behavior can change your behavior. Just by my mood can change your mood by being in the same room. Because the signals I'm sending to myself, you could be receiving the same kind of signals and you feel kind of awkward, downward, because somebody just walked into the room and they're very negative or they're really hurt. You ever get that sense? Okay? It's not a sixth sense. We send signals. The body's sending signals and you're sending signals to other humans. That's how we pick up what we used to call vibes, feelings about something, right? So that's what this is really saying. Okay? Up to 15 feet they can go from person to person. Electromagnetic current. Warning, other people can feel the signal. Watch out. Now, what about these signals? Well, even birds get them. How do you think a bird goes 1,000 miles and they go back to the same nest when they hibernate? Animals can do it, right? The same nest 1,000 miles away, and they can find their way to that nest over and over and over again. A signal. Well, all mankind, all kinds of animals, we all run on signals. So I want to leave you with that understanding is that physically you may not see what I'm talking about. You don't understand the physical technology, don't worry about it. It's not physical. There's other kinds of things happening within you, your mind, your body. It's controlling everything that happens to you, but how other people can also pick up those vibes, those signals. And all of a sudden, that's what we call, the understanding of how human nature works. Now, we have a machine that now records the signals. They're used all over the world by the military called the squid. It can read the brain, the heart, the muscle fields from feet away in the bodies. Both send out these signals. We now capture the signals called the squid. So now we can see the signals that are going on. The military uses this undersea. They know when there's a problem under the sea about certain submarines happening and things that are going on. Okay? Your cells are influenced by your thoughts, and the thoughts are created because you're sending the thoughts signals from your brain and your heart. Remember that signal because you just wiggled your foot. Okay? Keep questioning, how do I control my thoughts? Is this a woman? Or a young girl? Or an old lady? What is it? What do you think? It's all based on what? Your perception, right? Actually, it's a young woman. This is her neck. You may have seen it as an old woman. You're in trouble. Negative thought. All right, so perception can allow you to change too. Our core beliefs control our behavior, influenced by our perceptions. So the neurotic fear, the effects of time, may be the cause of premature aging as well. So what I tend to see, that causes a physical and a mental deterioration. Okay, that neurotic fear. Okay, that's basically what we're talking about. My Fair Lady, the self-fulfilling prophecy, the great movie that was out for some years. She didn't believe she had the ability. He believed she did. She finally ended up believing greater than he did that she had that ability, and she became a Fair Lady. It's called Pygmalion. Pygmalion process is passing it on to other people. My belief in you becomes your belief, so you change. And again, those are signals. Same thing with any kind of game. How does that work? And we're going to end with this. Well, you're as healthy as you think you are, useful as you think you are, young as you think you are. Change that too. Change your thoughts, change your life, renew your mind. That's what it says in Romans 12:2. Shift your mindset to the positives. That's not really me. That's Ralph. Meditation opens up your mind, becomes aware of the circumstances to change. Meditation works best, and it works beautifully, and there's courses on that here, okay, because it sends a signal into your body and into your heart, begin to believe it, changing your subconscious as well as your conscious, and all of a sudden you can do it, you can believe it. But if you do it before you go to bed, it'll work for 8 hours in your body. Meditate or pray on what you want for an outcome before going to sleep. See it clearly in your mind. Write down what your mind records in the AM. It would be shocking because it's going to wake up with a new thought, a new idea, because you meditated on it during your sleep. 3, use your vision. 40% of your mind is vision, whether sport, needs, or anything. Visualizing it as if it happened. Okay? Write down your own affirmations. Put them into where you can see them every day. Okay? Number 4, learn about emotional intelligence. Become aware of the triggers in your life that cause you to behave in a certain way emotionally. When that awareness gets very clear to you, every time I hear that word, I get upset. Every time I have the experience, I get upset. You're going to begin to control that emotion. That's called emotional intelligence. Turning your emotions around, which drive your thoughts. Okay? Overcome these thoughts and change your habits of wrongful thinking. Emotional intelligence, 80% responsible for success in just about every life in the world right now. And you rid yourself of fear, become aware. It's the first habit. Just get aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling. And by awareness, you're programming yourself to be what? Acknowledging this is bothering me until you can change it. Okay? Or, brain enrichment set. Mindfulness, expand your comfort zone. Dr. Tweet Coleman right here teaches those right here. Enhance your emotional intelligence. I don't know who this guy is. Learn the habits to adopt new methods of thinking. The skills of mindfulness. That's taught in the villages. Plenty of fresh oxygen to bring your brain each year. Fresh air, indoors, toxins. Exercise for the circulation. Here's what it does. Walk or pickleball. Not golf carts. Nope, they're cheating. Walk, don't ride. Exercise by strengthening your brain. Not that kind of exercise. And warning, erode. Alcohol erodes the brain faster. Totally kill it. Okay? So use this wisely if you can, and thank you very much for coming.